All right, today we're going to talk about volume of prisms. And prisms are three-dimensional figures, like this rectangular prism here. This is a triangular prism here because it's a triangle. And then we have cylinders. So we're going to talk about those types of shapes. One picture I don't have here is a cube. A cube is the same length on all sides. So when we're talking about volume, we're talking about not only the length and the width, but we're also including the height. And that's basically what you have to take into account anytime you're doing the volume. I like to think of volume as an empty shape. Sometimes you can think of them as solids that you fill up with water. And so like if you had a glass, a cylinder glass, and you filled it up with water, the water that is made up inside of that glass is your volume. And it's 3 dimensions. So what if you had to take a guess, what would the units be if it's 3 dimensions? We've been studying length and width, which is 2 dimensions for area. So we've been squaring things. What would happen if there's 3? Cube. Yeah, it would be cubes. So that's what you're creating when you are multiplying the length, the width, and the height. You're creating little cubes, like you're throwing a bunch of cubes inside of the space. So all of the units have to be based on cubic or cubes. So the volume of a solid is the amount of space that's inside the solid. If we were to fill the rectangular prism with water, the volume would be the amount of water that the prism could hold. So volume is measured in cubic units, also called units cubed, just like with squares and squares cubed, and actual units squared. Okay? You can do it 2 different ways. So here is a cubic centimeter. A cubic centimeter is 1 centimeter all the way around. So your length is 1 centimeter, your width is 1 centimeter, and your height is 1 centimeter. So we will now see how to calculate the volume of various shapes. So here is a rectangular prism, and it's empty. And we have a length of 10 centimeters, a width of 3 centimeters, and a height of 4 centimeters. So if I were to multiply all those, what would I get? How much? 120 cubic centimeters. Okay? Now sometimes what people like to do is they like to look at the area first on the bottom of the prism. So if I looked at the area, I'd get 10 times 3, which would be 30, right? This space is the same as the bottom space of the cube. Then I would multiply the height. It doesn't matter. What I like to do is just go ahead and multiply the length, the width, and the height and get the volume. But you can break it up into the squared units if you like. So let me go ahead and fill this up for you. You see that there's about 4 layers that matches the 4 centimeters there. And then they include the area times the height. But I just like to just go ahead and multiply the 10, the 3, and the height. Just do it all 3 together. So you can do the area first and then the height, or you can do all of it together. Which one do you guys prefer? The first way, just all together? Okay. So 120 centimeters cubed is correct, Pon Santana. So the formula that we can use is The volume is equal to the length times the width times the height when you have a rectangular prism. So that's the formula for a rectangular prism. You'll notice on the abbreviations, V stands for volume, L stands for length, W stands for width, and H stands for height. So you can abbreviate it as well. So if I gave you a couple of these to calculate, what would the answer to this one be if I use that formula? What's number 1? And that's our first formula. What did you get for 14 times 5 times 7? 490 what? Cubic centimeters or centimeters cubed, right? So 490 is what we should get here. All right? Now try number 2. 3.4 times 3.4 times 3.4. That's a cube. All of the measures are the same length. So for the cube, you have side times side times side, or side to the third power, side cubed. Okay. Anybody get the cube one? 3.4 times 3.4 times 3.4. 39 point what? 304. And I just rounded it. 39.3, I rounded it to the 10th. And don't forget, it's centimeters cubed. We've got cubes this time when we're talking about volume. And then try the number 3, try that rectangular prism. I would be using the top formula here, length times width times height. 76 point, I rounded it to 9, yeah. 76.9, and in this case it's meters. So I go meters cubed. Okay? Are there any questions about the formulas for a cube or for a rectangular prism? Okay, let's move on then. Now, triangular prisms. A triangular prism has a triangle in it. Here's a picture of one. Now, in a triangular prism, I could do the same thing. I could find the area of the triangle by taking the base and the height and dividing by 2, and then include the length, which would be, in this case, I'd take 5 times 5 divided by 2 times it by 8. Or I could put them all together, which is the way I prefer to do it. I would just take the base times the height times the length and then divide it by 2. So when they talk about the cross section, they're just talking about the area. So you could break it up into pieces. Sometimes they may give you just the area of the triangle and then the length of the prism. So then you know all you got to do is take the area of the triangle times the length and you've got your volume. And sometimes you just calculate it from scratch. So you have 1/2 the base times the height to get the area. And remember, areas are always squared. And then you multiply it by the length, and that will give you the volume. But like I said, what I like to do is I like to put it all together. So in this formula, we have the volume of a triangular prism is 1/2 the base times the height, which is your area, times the length, which gives you your volume. Or another way to write this is the way I wrote it on the board. I can take base times height times length and divide it by 2. Just divide all of that by 2 at the end, and I get the same answer. So whichever way you want to do it is fine with me. The answers will always end up being cubic units, whatever the units are. It could be cubic feet, cubic inches, cubic centimeters, like in this example, okay? So let's try these formulas out. Oops, I didn't mean to give you guys the answer. Let me go back one. Prove that the answer is 288 here. I was too quick on the draw there. Verify the 288, and then tell me the answer to number 2.